Hi everyone, I'm Rosemary, and today I'm going to be guiding you through painting for Valentine's Day. I have these two love signs, and they are both done very similarly, just in different colors. This one I chose to do the pastels, and this one I went to the brighter, the red and the pink on this one. So you can do whatever you want on your pieces. Some of you have this and some of you have this piece. So you'll be able to do the same technique and choose whatever colors you want. Like if you want to do the stand-up sign in pastels, you can. If you want to do the reds and the pinks on this one, you can also. I'm just here to show you how I did it, and I always say you are the artist, so you can choose whatever colors you would like. Now I started both of these pieces by base coating them in gray, and I'll show you the bottom. Okay, that has gray on it, and this one you could see it on the whole entire back, which I didn't do anything with, I just left it. You can also do the back if you want. I just did that. Now the colors are going to be pounced on, which means you don't need much color in your brush at all. I went ahead and I put some of the colors in my palette, and if you could see there's like hardly anything in there, and they will go on with very little paint. You need very little paint when you do the pouncing. Pouncing is, it's instead of doing dry brushing, which on a flat surface, dry brushing is very difficult to do. And you really have to have nothing in the brush. And I find when I'm teaching dry brushing, everyone puts too much paint in their brush because you want to achieve the final color or the final depth of color with your first application. You're not going to get that with dry brushing. So in order to get this to be done a little quicker and a little easier to do on a flat surface is I'm going to pounce it, all right? So I'm using a little bigger brush than you have there. The brushes that I give you are just some basic brushes, but you should probably invest in more brushes. You can get them on Amazon at Michael's, and if you're going to be doing these programs, you should have some decent brushes. These are nylons. The nylons are what I use to put on a base coat, and the stiffer, I believe the ox hair, are what I use to pounce and to do dry brushing. So I'm going to start with white, because when I dry brush, I never wash my brush in between colors, because once you have a wet brush, dry brush or pounce, the color doesn't go on as easily. It dilutes it too much. So, and you should have a paper towel handy. So you pick up a little bit of the paint in the brush, kind of blend it into the hairs of the brush. Now, dry brushing, you would take 90% of it out of your brush. With pouncing, I just kind of blend it so I don't have a big blob on my brush, but I put it on a little bit heavier because I'm pouncing it around. Now, if you could see what I'm doing here, it goes on a little wetter. Like if you were dry brushing this, you wouldn't want to see that wet look. That would mean you're putting it on too heavy. But when you're pouncing, it's a little different. Now, if it gets up onto the letters, don't stress, because we're going to be putting the other colors over it. Eventually, you'll have to be neat with them. So I'm putting this on the base, the white. And even though I'm doing dry brushing and I'm putting it on a little heavy, I'm not doing dry brushing, I'm doing pouncing and putting it on a little heavier than when I dry brush. I'm still probably going to want 2 coats on it. As you could already see where I went over it a second time there under the heart, you could see that it's a little brighter white. So do the whole thing once and then go back and do it again. And you see how far this goes? Go in between the letters. Little dot. I'm not even going to need half of what I put out there. Now you can paint it, but it's a lot harder. Like if you were going to paint it and just paint solid colors on everything, you wouldn't have to do the gray base coat. You don't need a base coat on the bisque as long as all your areas are going to be covered with the acrylic. But it's a lot harder to do. I tried doing this one once, and I tried doing each letter individual. It was like a lot of work. Your colors weren't butted up against each other perfectly, so I found that this way is a lot easier and a lot faster when I'm teaching a class to pounce the colors on. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to do it a second time to get a sharper white out of it. You see one brush load, that little bit I put in the brush goes all the way across the piece. And I'm not being extra neat. If it goes up onto the letters, it's okay. And then I'll dip again, and I'll go over the back one more time. Okay, so now the white is done. Now, I I don't have white anywhere else on the piece, so I'm just going to wipe it out as much as I can. Now don't wash it, like I said, don't wash your brush, and wipe that out. And I'll start with the, let me start with the green down on the other end, because if there's too much white in the brush, the lilac is a very light color and it won't go on as well. So we'll start with the green. I pick up just a drop in the brush, pat it into the hairs of the brush, and try to get it around the flower as much as possible. But when you pounce the color on the flower, it will cover up the green. So I'm not being perfectly neat with that. See, that's the one advantage of having the gray underneath. Just trying to figure out what that was. It was the letter E. So now I got some of the green on my white base. I'm just going to take a little water and swish it off. But you can always go back later and touch up. So don't stress, and then you use a smaller brush to touch up. And you do the front and the backs of the letters. And this is how I do it. Just pounce with the side of the brush. I don't do point down, I do the side. You can actually see my brush is tilting that way. And again, you do 2 coats. I'm going to just do 1, but if I were you, I would do 2 coats. It gives you a better color. I just want you to see how I did it. Okay? All right, now you see that? That's got the green on it. Now I don't have green anywhere else, so I'm going to wipe the green out. And while you're doing that, I'll go over this one also. So this one is base coated in the gray. And then I took the pink, and I put the pink on the piece, and I pounced it the same way. I pounced all the pink around on the piece. Now, after I did the pink, I put a little bit of white in my brush and did a little white on the edges, like here. Flip it down onto the edges of the letters. And you do that on everything, but you could do that at the end when you're finished. So it's the pink and the red on the letters. Okay, and then you go back. You do your designs at the end. Don't even try to do designs now. Okay, let's see. I'll put this over here a little bit. All right, so then the next letter I did is blue. So I'm going to go to the blue. Now, when I first put the blue in the brush with the green, because I'm not washing my brush, I wipe it out a few times to get rid of the green. You clean your brush. If you're using the same brush for everything, you clean your brush with the next color. Okay, and I'm doing it 3-4 times to get rid of the green that was in the brush. Okay, now I think I've got rid of most of it. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to pounce the blue. Now when you do 1 coat, it's very pale looking, so you have to do a couple of coats. Put it on just a little bit heavier. It gives you a little bit more color also. See, this is the other side. Don't forget to get in between the letters. This is such a cute piece. They're both cute pieces. Okay, and then get around to the back. And I see a spot that I missed with the green, and I'll just go back with that later. I can use a different brush and just pounce some of the green on there. Okay, so now that's 1 coat, and I'm going to go back in and do a 2nd coat. And the 2nd coat makes a big difference. Look at the difference on the top of this one here. Okay? That makes a big difference. It gives you a lot more depth of color. Just like dry brushing. When you dry brush, sometimes I do 4 and 5 coats of dry brushing if you put it on properly. And you can dry brush this, but you know, for those of you that know how to dry brush, this class that I'm doing right now here is children who have picked up the pieces. They are children, and I try to make it as easy as possible for them to do it, and dry brushing is not easy for children to do, unless I was there in person trying to show them how. Like I said, everyone puts too much in their brush and wants to achieve the final effect of color with the first application, and you don't get that when you're pouncing or dry brushing. So now I'm going to go on to the pink. So I'm going to use the pink to wipe out the blue, and it changed immediately. So I had more trouble getting the green out of the brush, but the pink, no problem at all. So now I'm going to do a pink heart, pouncing it on the same way. I'm doing this upside down, so bear with me if it's not as neat as it should be. other side. Now when you do your gray, your first coat, allow it to dry for a while before you'd start doing this, or you'll be lifting the gray right off the piece. Okay, and then I'll go back and do a second coat. And a second coat, look at the difference in the second coat. Big difference. Okay. And I believe I did this on that flower also on the other side, but I'm going to take a smaller brush to do that. I'll take the brush like you have and I don't like that one. I'll use this one. Now you could also just paint the flower in. That might be easier. Let's take the round brush and let's go back and just paint the flower in. I think that gives you a better effect. Okay, see the petal I just did versus the dry brushing, because it's a small area, so it's hard to pounce. So just scoop around. Okay, so what I'm doing is I lay the color down, and I go into like a circle like so, and then go back down to the bottom and do another, kind of circle it at the top and then fill in. Okay, put the brush down, scoop it down, go back up to the top, scoop around. Oh, I did a red center on that one, huh? Now I see some spots here that, now this you do wash. When you're painting, you wash your brush, whereas the dry brushing brush I haven't washed. And I'm going to take a little green with this brush and pounce it in between the flower petals. Okay, all right, so I'm going to leave that for now, and then I'm going to do my lilac on the L. It has a little pink in the brush, but that's okay. Okay, get in between there as much as you can, and then do the back. Now the L goes around behind the heart here. Okay, see that? Now I'm kind of rushing it, so I am making some mistakes, but you take your time. You shouldn't have to rush it. I try to get it all in the time that I'm doing this piece to show you how to do it. So, all right, but that gives you the idea. They're very similar, right? And the rest is just design work on top of it. Now I'm taking the red, and just remember, dots and designs take a long time to dry. And just to go over this one, I took the white, and after I had the pink on, I took the white and feathered it down from the edge. Like if I took white and did it on here, I could even do it on here. I'll show you on this one so you have an idea. Okay, I just feathered some white down. And you could do it on this one too. I don't know if you could really see it. A little bit of white. Oh, I'm putting it on the wrong one. I'm putting it on the one that's already done. Let's put it on this one. It'll be a little easier for you to see. There we go. Now I didn't do this on my first sample, and I'm just doing it with almost 1 or 2 brush loads, and we could just flip a little bit of white on the edge to accent it. Okay, see that? There's a little bit of white on the edge to accent it. All right, and if you want that to be sharper, you do that 2 times also. So now I'm going to do the center. Take the small brush again that you have, and we'll do the center in red of the flower. And again, it doesn't have to be the red. And that you're just going to paint on. It's just a circle. And I did the red to make it pop. Gives it that little pop of color. Okay, you see, and then I went back in with the white and I did designs. Now, if you want to do the lines like I did in the flower, you use this same brush and you just do 3 lines. You do 1, 2, 3. So 2 of them are curved, and the one in the middle is straight and smaller. Start at the bottom, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, see what I'm doing? I'll show you the 2 first. I follow the shape of the petal. Okay, you see right here I just did the 2, and then I come back in the middle and do 1. Okay. All right, now I'm going to do my designs with the back end of my brush. Now you have 2 brushes there, and they both have decent handles on them. So this one has the square brush has the smaller end, and the pointy brush has the fatter end. So it depends on what size dots that you want to do. So I'm going to go back in and do the dots on the center of the flower. Just dip in, and you're going to go straight down. You're not going to drag it or pull your brush. You're just going to go straight down and do the centers. See them? Okay. And you should dip at least every other one, because they get smaller if you don't dip your handle of your brush. Every time you do a dot, they will get smaller and smaller and smaller, which is a cute kind of pattern also. All right, but you see what I did? I just did that. All right, now the one thing I do want to show you is I want to show you how to do the hearts. That's the tricky part, but it's really very easy. I'm going to do it on the L. I didn't do it on the L on this one, but I'm going to do it on the L and on the V so that you could see what I'm doing, because if I do it on the base, it's hard to see. You know, I got paint all over me. This is why I say let it dry and come back to it. You have the option of pausing the video every time. All right, so with the hearts, dip the handle of the brush into the paint and do 1, 2. I should have used the bigger brush, but anyway, do 2 dots. They're like eyes. I call them eyes. See that? 2 little dots. And then you're just going to take that handle and you're going to pull down from the 2 dots. You're going to pull down to make a V. And the handle of the brush does that perfectly. Again, 1, 2, and then pull down. And they'll all be different shapes. Okay, here you go. And again, 1, 2. I'm running out of paint. And there, and you just pull down on that, those two circles that you put down there. Just pull down to a point. 1. Want them a little bigger. Okay. All righty. And that's what you're doing. It's 2 dots, and I call them eyes, and then you pull it down to the center to make like a V. It's like a V underneath the 2 hearts. Okay, see that? So it's 2 dots, and then pull and pull. Pull each dot down to a point. And you may want to practice on a piece of paper. You can do that. You can practice that on a piece of paper before you go to your piece. Now the rest of it is just dots. I did dots outlining the flowers. I did hearts all over the base. You all have in your directions, you have my email, so if you need to see a picture, I can send it to you, but you also are watching the video, so you can see it on the video too. And this is exactly the same thing. Now I did a kind of a flower on this one here, and the way you do that, I'm going to show you on the V here, is let's do it so you can see it. Let's do a green center. Come on, a green center. Okay, can you see that? A little light. All right, and then I'm going to do red so you can really see it. Now, I got pink on the letter here. All right, so you're going to do the same thing you did with the heart. You're going to do 2 eyes, 2 dots above that green center, and then 1 right below it. Okay, can you see that? 2 dots above it and 1 below it. And then you have just the right amount of space to put a dot on either side of that center, and it makes almost a perfect circle. So there's 1 there, and there's 1 there. And it comes very uniform, whereas if you try to just go around, they're never perfect. Okay, if you go around and try to do the flower, just by going around with the dots. So again, let's do a center. This time I'll do a pink center. You can see it a little better. There's a pink center. And then 2 eyes. And you could do it with either handle on the brush. The other handle on the brush is a little bigger. Okay, and there's my 3. And then 1 on either side. Oh, I smeared my white dots. See, that's what I mean if you are rushing the piece. So you have the opportunity to, you have the paints at home and you have the option of not rushing it, whereas I'm doing the video, I want to get it all in so you can see what I did. Excuse me. So don't rush it. You will smear the dots. The dots smear very easily. The paint dries very fast when it's on the, when you're painting it on and when you're pouncing it on, it dries very fast. But when you're doing dots and you're working with the back end of the brush, it's more of a puddle of the paint going on there. So it takes a lot longer to dry. So I think that's it. If you have any questions, like I said, you have my email. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. These are the 2 different love plaques. And if you wanted to take a picture with your phone, you can also do that. All right, and this is the one that I was painting, which I'll finish at another time. But I want you to see how I did the pouncing and how I did the dots and how I did the flowers and the hearts. And that's basically what you should be learning on this. And always put your paints on very smoothly. Don't puddle them on. If you paint and then you go dip for more paint, and when you're doing the base coating and you still have a lot of very wet spots, that means you're not pulling your color out. So you pull it out as far as it'll go before you dip for more paint. Okay, so that's it. And I hope all of you have a very happy Valentine's Day. And thank you for looking at my video. I appreciate it, and for getting the kits from the library. Thank you. Hope to see you again soon.